So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put together our covering frame. And what we'll do here, we've got short pieces and long pieces. So what I'm going to do, set this up like so, so the short pieces go on the outside. This is kind of important because we've sized this kind of just right. It has to do with production issues as to the sizing of our frames for this airplane, as it has, you know, 2 wings, and it requires a lot of extra surface area, and that requires an extra large covering frame. Over here and we'll do the other 2 corners. There we go. Okay, so take some petroleum jelly, a napkin or something like that, and what we're going to do is we're just going to run this, get a fairly heavy coat all the way around your covering frame. And now set that aside so you don't get it on your covering while you're working with your covering. Alright, so next we're going to take our covering material. This is thin Mylar. We're going to carefully unfold this. This is 2 micron Mylar here. We're hopefully going to be able to stick that to that with these kits. We'll see how the weight works out in testing. So you may find yourself with something a little bit lighter. You don't know. But what you're going to do is range it out kind of like that. It's sticking to the table, you can see. Kind of wants to stick to itself and everything around it. So what we're going to do to fix that is we're going to wad it up. Fold a little bit and wad it up again. We want to get all of it crinkled. And now let go of it, and notice it comes open real nice like that. So now what we can do is and start to spread it out. There we go. Got a few spots that are sticking up a little bit. That's okay. We can tighten this up some more once we get it onto the covering frame. So now take your covering frame and place it greasy side down, whatever you want to call it. You know, so you've got plenty of room around here, so don't have to, you know, perfectly center up or anything like that. We're not going to trim off the excess or anything. And now, slide this off and try to tighten it up a little bit on the frame. Again, as long as you've gotten it decently on there to start with, you'll get a very good covering job on the airplane. You don't want it to be excessively tight on the flying surfaces anyway, so if it's a little bit kind of loose like it is down here, that's not necessarily something you really need to fix. This airplane is built fairly light, so it can warp if you get the covering too tight. But you want to get it as tight as you can without warping it, because it does fly substantially better that way. Now we'll set that aside. All right. So due to the conditions here at the house right now, I'm not going to show myself spraying this down. If you look at some of our other videos, particularly our senior flyer video for this year and whatnot, the Science Olympiad senior flyer, you'll be able to see me spraying surfaces like these down, and fairly simple operation. Now, one thing I will mention here is this kind of arrangement right here. Pay attention to how this is oriented, because this is, like I said, the frames are kind of closely toleranced here, and so this is kind of the arrangement you want to form to be able to get everything within the surface area of the frame. And in fact, I will take this covering frame, we'll set it down here, and you can see everything just fits inside there, and the static cling is pretty substantial. Let me arrange this back out real quick so I can make one more important point, because somebody's certainly going to ask. The rudder vertical stab here does not matter which side you put the plastic on. You can use trim adjustments to get either way, so don't worry too much about which side am I putting the plastic on over there. Everything sprayed down. When these lay down, they kind of stick, and it's possible to get things kind of skewed, like your ribs kind of skewed and whatnot. So spend a little bit of time making sure all that's mostly squared up. Don't completely obsess over it, but you do want the ribs perpendicular to the spars and whatnot. Make sure the edges of this covering that I'm playing with here with my fingers don't wrap around and get stuck on things. I'm going to do is I'm going to center up, and based on that, hopefully I get away with it. Yeah, there we go. And so what I'm trying to do is we'll start at the corners on all these, and this basically just is a way to go ahead and immobilize the flying surfaces here under the covering, because they'll go ahead and stick to it and not move around, not get bent, skewed, etc. And at that point, you go around with a finger, pick a finger that you haven't sprayed your 3M77 on. There we go. Now at this point, take a razor blade and start cutting all this out. This one, I think, may be a little dull. Yep. So I'll go find a new one.
Do you need a sharper one?
I could use that, yes please. Alright, so at this point we've got the covering done. So what I'm going to do is show you how to set the dihedral on one of the wings. And then I'll also show taking up the slack in them, because you're going to have some slack form once you put the dihedral in there. So find some solid objects to lay down parts of the airframe here. Actually, before you do that, go ahead and pop these little guys loose, like so. And across here, like so. And at this point realize I still jumped again. The only part that really matters is that tip elevation. And what its real purpose is to get you under that 18-inch span limit. And that's one thing you will want to measure, is to make sure that indeed my plane is under the 18-inch span limitation. Now you see we've got a little bit of slack here. We'll talk about taking that up here in just a minute. And there you go. Now, there are numerous time-honored techniques for getting the slack out of covering at dihedral joints. This covering is a little on the stiffer side, so it's a little hard to use most of those techniques. So what I actually do, I know this seems crazy if you're a hardcore indoor modeler, this seems like pure insanity. If you're not, then you have no idea how insane it is to put CA actually physically on your covering. But just know that that's generally considered a little bit crazy sauce of an idea. But it seems to work out fairly well. Except for when it doesn't, like right here. And try to not do what I just did, which was actually glue yourself to the covering. If you can't get all the slack out, not that big of a deal. So what I'm doing is actually lapping the covering kind of over itself here with the aid of one of these dihedral gauges. And there we go. One side came out well, the other side really has not actually even stuck. So It is what it is. Alright, so having done that, make sure your covering is actually sticking down. I've got a spot where mine's actually coming up. And then you're good to go. So repeat this on your other wing over here, and then we'll come back. Alright, so let's take our motor stick out of its carrier sheet here. There's a little gusset here as well. Go ahead and take the gusset, and it's going to go on the back here, and orient it so the grain goes this way. That way, not horizontal. Next, come over to our sheet of goodies here and pop your tail boom out. And the way it works, we're going to glue it, so this is going forward. We're going to glue it to this side. So this is the left side of the airplane. And you line it up. There's a little kind of an indent right here. Right here where it kind of straightens out. Line up the bottom right here like that. So that notch is flush with the end. And this gives us the right amount of up elevator for the airplane to be happy. What we've got is this up elevator in here, and now what we're going to do is we're going to finish off the rear hook, and we're going to install the nose. So what you're going to do is you see this piece of wire right here. I'm going to put a bend in this with about that much sticking out, like that. So I'm putting about that angle, I'm estimating, as I want this to nest right up in here like so. And I got the angle right on the first try. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take glue, and I'm going to just tack glue it in place a little bit. And so you can see I've got that glued like so. Now hold that carefully because it's vulnerable right now. And take your spider wire binding thread out of here. And I don't normally use scotch tape to hold that in there. It is very resilient, very enthusiastic. So what we're going to do is find some of the glue that's still wet there if we can. We're going to wrap this around. Get some in this corner right here, and then a couple of wraps out front, and then work your way on up. And particularly, you want to wrap the end like that. And you can just kind of tie this off anywhere you feel like it. Hit it with some CA. Doesn't take a whole lot. It's very important you don't have any like sticking out or anything where it can get caught in the rubber motor. then what I'm going to do is at the apex here, I'm going to bend this to where it points almost straight back like that. Leave about, you know, 1/2, 3/4 of an inch sticking out. And there you go. So it's about, sticks out about that far. Now come up front and take your little nose bearing and grab that piece of wire, thread it through there, and then on the top of this nose bearing, so this is the front out here, the kind of, you know, not forked part is the back, so this is the front right up here. So on top, on this flat part right here, put a little bit of glue, and now put that underneath here like so, and check the alignment. If anything, so we're looking from the bottom, if anything you want it angled a little bit this way to give you some left thrust. You don't want it angled that way, giving you right thrust. Gently slide your wire out. Then we're going to bind this in place as well. Don't be afraid to put a fair amount of binding up front, because you do not want that front of the plane coming loose. Front of the bearing, you know, whatever you call it. There we go. So you see, like so. Take a piece of this tubing, the polyamide tubing, the orange stuff, and cut off a piece that is about 1/2 inch long. And where you've got this notch right here, I want you to glue that on the left side of the airplane. So we're facing forward here, so that means this is the left side. Right there, lined up with that notch. We're just going to drop that guy in place. It needs to be straight up and down this way. You can see it's flush with the bottom. It's okay if it extends up above the top, but it has to be flush with the bottom. Now the rear one, we're going to wait on. Take one of your wings now and let's cut out these one remaining set of parts here. These are your wing posts. And these marks, tabs here actually are about 1 inch above the bottom here. Ones that are closer. If in doubt, measure it. Now come over here to your covering. And right here where you've got those notches, kind of cut a little bit of a hole in the covering. Do that top, front and back. Be real careful about this because that hole can spread. And now we're going to slide this up from the bottom, squirt some glue in the notch, and glue this straight up and down. Like that. I know it looks kind of funky because the wing's twisting. but we're gluing this with 1 inch exposed below the bottom of the wing. We're going to do the same exact thing up front. And again, we're gluing that straight up and down. So those need to be parallel. Grab this other piece of polyamide tubing, cut a 1/2 inch piece off of it, stick it on the trailing edge piece here. I can see these came out a little on the thin side, so we're going to thicken them up with CA. Don't let them stick, of course. So there we go. Now that fits fairly tightly. The same thing in the front. Now, at this point, you can glue the trailing edge back here. So be careful not to get glue in the end of that tube. So one way to do that, I've not let this touch yet. Put accelerator on there. Now with this straight up and down and all that. Now it's attached. And so those posts are parallel to each other. Or finished attaching the lower wing like so. We can attach the upper wing. So it's just going to nest in there like so, in those notches. Our goal is to get that perpendicular. Once again, I know that doesn't show up real well, but I do have it squared up on the front. And then we'll do the same thing on the back. Kind of sight down the front. You want them to sit parallel when everything is correct. Now I'll get this turned around in a minute so you can see it. I do actually have a twist in the lower wing that I'm going to have to take out here in a minute. So if you look at this, the upper wing here is straight, the lower has a twist in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to I may have broken something. Yep, wing post. So you got to be careful about that. So what we'll do is we're going to break the wing post back to center there. We'll have to break it up above to correct for that. Because what I've done is now I've twisted the upper wing by breaking the post. Actually, only just a tiny little bit. So what we'll do is we'll kind of bring it back here. No, that's about right. So looks about right. This one's loose, so what we're going to do is we're going to squirt some glue here, kind of like what we did on the front. Just there. Get it all fitting good. And there we go. Now, at this point, what we want to do is attach our horizontal stab. So you're going to turn it so that the notches are lined up with the tail here. And it's okay to have a little bit of stab tilt. I'm going to recommend not having much. So you can kind of balance the plane. And I want to caution you, the stab sits on top of here. You don't overlap it over the edge. It sits cleanly on top of the tail boom. And make sure everything's parallel there, or close to it. Because like I said, you should not need much stab tilt. If you do, you can always twist the tail boom. Now the last step in assembling the airplane is put the rudder on our vertical tail. And so the vertical tail goes on the bottom here. Just like that. And hang it straight up and down like that. There we go. Now at this point, we can go ahead, we can slide our propeller shaft in. Come on, go on in there. There we go. At this point I find out somehow or another I got mine a little bit short. However, it's starting to work in there. If you remember, I got some glue on the prop shaft, and so it just takes a little while to kind of work that in. And there we go. Propeller's starting to turn freely. You may have to take a razor blade and clean some of that off if that's an issue for yours. We'll go ahead and do a quick CG check. CG is about where you want it on a penny plane. So there we go. I know you can't. Yeah. My hand's under there somewhere, under all that Mylar.
Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.